We missed you last weekend. We hope you're good and well, Austin, but good to have you back.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
You're
Hey,
welcome.
Oz, how's it going, man? So you knew I was out, so you decided. No, I was in that day. You missed my birthday, man. Come on, Austin. You get that.
All I know is I've not heard from Will Bowling's voice in 3 years. I think he's been on like a month-long vacation.
Hey, let him have it when you talk to him. Please let him have it, Austin.
He'll be back next week, so that's your opportunity, Austin.
I like it.
Austin, a lot of news happened since last week. The biggie in terms of the broadcast booth, Mike Keith introduced as the next voice of the Vols, and Danny White just continuing to make moves when it comes to making Tennessee bigger and better.
Yeah, I think that Danny's had Mike, kind of circled as the guy he wanted to, whenever Bob was going to retire, try to go after for, several years now since he got here. I think that, Mike came over, did some stuff around signing day a few years ago, and Mike just presents so well. He's so polished, and, I think he's exactly what Danny White was looking for in a replacement for Bob. And, when Bob decided to retire, it was one phone call. I'm not saying it was just one phone call and they said yes because you have to court a guy, but there was one phone call to make. It was 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then probably 5, 2. So kudos to everybody for getting that one across the finish line. I think it was. It might only been with the Titans for 4 or 5 years at a time. I think it might be different, but he's called Titans games for over a quarter century, and always had that dream to call Tennessee football. And, as he told Brent Hubbs when we sat down with him, early last week before they announced it, watched that 22 Alabama game and just started to see the faces on the students and all the different things. And all the stuff just kind of started to stir in him again about his love for Tennessee football. And, there you go.
Austin Price with us this morning, VolQuest's on 3. Austin, I just wanted to jump in because Mike brought up that point, and you guys have sit down with him, and he said it. I've had conversation with him, too, about that particular game, Austin. We're speaking about the college football playoffs and making it to the championship and stuff like that. We had a Notre Dame guy call in and troll a little bit, too, which is warranted at times, right? But there are points in, teams, pathway, journeys. And everyone to a T that seems to be a Vols fan, man, not knowing what Josh Heupel was, how much did he win over the fan base? And even further now, with that 2022 win over Alabama, if you could reflect on that.
Ramon. School had admissions paperwork filled out, for just a crazy amount of applicants that wanted to go to school after that game. I think it did awaken so much of the fan base. So much of the fan base that went dormant when you cried at Philip Fulmer's firing press conference, reawoken. Yeah. It was kind of like they went into the Austin Powers when the crowd, cryo froze him, and then all of a sudden they thawed him. It thawed the fan base in a lot of ways. And I know I'm joking about your stuff, but
I thought it's, but I was in the moment. I felt like I was right, and I still am, because look what we went through to get back to this point. Though, Austin, is the point that you're making, right?
Correct. You're right. There's a point that when things go south, that there's a reason they go south, and then there's a point when things wake up. And this was definitely the point where things woke up. Tennessee just hadn't had anything like that. They had that cool 16 season where, Jawan burnt Tabor and then caught the Hail Mary, but then it quickly fizzled when you lost to South Carolina and Vanderbilt when you had the inside track to go to Atlanta. And so while Tennessee didn't go to Atlanta in 22, that season had so many special moments of getting to number one and going to the Orange Bowl and winning a meaningful bowl for the first time in 20 years. That it was something that kind of woke the fan base up, and it all started on that night in Neyland when Tennessee won 52-49. So I think you got a lot of your younger fans re-energized with that game, and you carried it on. You beat Florida again at home, you beat Alabama again at home. Now the trick is to figure out a way to win at the Swamp which you haven't done.
Yes.
Which you haven't done in 22 years, and win in Tuscaloosa, and you hadn't won down there since 2003 either. So it's two places you've not won in 22 years. So figure out how to win down there or beat Georgia at home.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you got to do in 2025.
No doubt about it, man. And again, looking at this journey that they had this year, Coach Heupel and his staff, well, he's got to make some decisions on his staff, man. One of those is Coach Eckler, Mike Eckler. He isn't on the roll with Coach, as last reported by you guys in the war room, man. So what's going to be his positioning moving forward as far as retaining him moving forward?
Well, I think that'll be up to Coach Heupel, and we'll see what he elects to do. Obviously, Mike Eckler is now. Him not being on the road now doesn't mean that he's for sure not going to be back. They can now pick and choose who they put out on the road. It does not have to be an on-the-field assistant, because they changed that rule to where you can have all the coaches on the field. So, like Coach Chop is an on-the-field coach now. He's no longer an analyst that I'm using the air quotes here, stands over there on the side and charts things. And so now he can go out on the road and you can just pull somebody off. I'm sure at times there might be Glenn Ellerby off the road, or Alec Ablin off the road, or whoever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do understand if you're a traditional on the field coach and all of a sudden you're not on the road, you're on an expiring deal. There's a certain look to that, and I think that's why you've seen Will Compton push so hard for him to get the Nebraska job, and again, we'll see what happens. It won't surprise me if Coach Eckler moves on to something else. It won't surprise me at all if Coach Heupel gives him an extension on a deal. So, I think that's kind of, where this thing's at. I don't think anything's set in stone one way or the other, but I don't think you have to be on the road to be back.
No doubt about it. Austin Price with us this morning. Austin, I'm starting to see a little bit of a trend, man, that comes across my algorithm. Some of the VFLs or current players that I don't follow, they're popping up on my algorithm on Twitter, okay? One of those guys is Ethan Davis, and another one is Ricky Gibson III, man. They're putting out the, year two and, blessed to be back and grateful and stuff. So I'm guessing, like, deals are done as NIL sets itself up a certain way, right? But in that, another guy that had Hills set up perfectly as of late was Mike Matthews. One thing I've seen circulate has been the potential for him. Is it true that he could be a two-way player in like this scheme that Coach Heupel is running? Because all I've heard is, like, if you thought he was good at wide receiver, I heard he was a hell of a safety or cornerback in high school.
Yeah, I do think he was a really good defensive player in high school. I do not see him playing defense here.
Okay.
Austin Price. Sorry, Austin.
I don't think it's a Boo situation where Boo's want to play both sides. I think Mike's want to play offense only.
Just play ball for him. Gotcha. Okay.
Austin Price joined us this morning on RK Dub. Speaking of that secondary, though, Austin, it's interesting to note coming into last year, there were still some uncertainties on what it would really be, right? Now coming into this next season, it looks to have maybe the strongest in terms of room and experience in terms of that backfield. How, I guess, good is that to know that they've kind of set their minds out to fix some of these spots, and it's obviously working out for them?
Yeah, I think, you just have to have a plan and stick to it, Kayla. And I think that's what they want to do. I mean, I think they feel really confident in that area. And they got to make some adjustments, obviously. But for the most part, I think you want to have confidence in what you're doing, confidence in your guys, and then two, just kind of be able to adjust on the fly, have new ideas, and do what you do at a high level.
Austin, we've got some people in the FNM Beck chat here that watch us in the streaming platform on YouTube, and a question that was asked was about James Pierce Jr. He hasn't technically declared, right? Do you know what exactly is going on with him?
No, people keep asking about him.
Really?
James will be going to the NFL draft. I mean, every kid announces on their own time frame.
Sure.
But I do not see James back, in 2025.
Is it interesting though, like these time frames of these kids nowadays of declaring? Because I guess people just assume once the season is over, or some even before the season is over, declare. Is there any rhyme or reason to maybe why a player waits?
I don't know. I've always thought it's odd when a kid has exhausted his eligibility and he puts out the graphic and declares for the NFL draft. It's like, oh, bro, of course you're declaring for the NFL draft. I think that's always funny to me. Like, I get the sentiment of like, hey, it was a great run. I love my 4 years. Thank the fans. Thank the coaches. And just, I just think you just say something like, I can't wait till the NFL draft in April or whatever, right? I mean, it's just that part of it's very strange to me when they declare for the draft and they're out of eligibility. Right. But hey, all these kids do it. It's not like it's just one or two. They're all doing it.
Yeah, no doubt. I remember when I was leaving for the draft, I was just like, I have to do this? Like, yeah, I'm done at the University of Tennessee. I'm with you. It's quite weird, but everything has to be an announcement these days, though. With that being said, though, there's been a couple of commitments here as of late for the Vols, man. One in the transfer portal, Amari Jefferson, if I'm not mistaken, a Chattanooga product, and also Gabriel Osenda, offensive lineman, man. What can you tell us about those two guys, and specifically, man, Amari Jefferson, who was at Alabama previously?
Yeah, Amari, did not play his freshman year at Alabama, Ramon. And so, there's a bit of an unknown there. You don't know what he is, how good he is. You know what he was in high school. There's a reason you recruited him so heavily, just over a year ago when he chose to go play for Nick Saban, over coming to Tennessee, and then Saban retired, and I don't think he ever had a real connection to the new staff. And he ended up having hip surgery in early November. He should be cleared coming up here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and will be good for spring practice unless there's some type of setback, which no one, hopes is the case. And, again, I think there's an unknown there, but I think, it's basically, low risk, high reward for Amari coming home, and so you got him for 4 years. He'll be a redshirt freshman this fall. So you have some longevity there with him, and, I think that's a good thing. And then Gabriel Osenda, kid from Canada. First time I met him, there was a shadow. He's big like you are. And you walk up, you create a shadow. You're like, well, who's this dude? And he's just a mountain of a kid, and you can't teach size. And so, I think he can improve his feet. I think he can improve his quickness. And he's still a pretty good little athlete for the size he is. So, I think for Tennessee, this is an easy take. And Gabe Osenda, Amari Jefferson, Joakim Dodson in this past class, all from the Baylor school. So Tennessee is building a nice little pipeline out of Chattanooga, where Eric Westmoreland, former Vol linebacker, coaches.
That is where Emo's at, man. Speaking of pipelines, Coach Rick Barnes has had a good one the last couple of years with Dalton Connect, and now we're seeing with Chaz Lanier too. I know not every coach has the same, respect and just speak freely the way they want to, but Austin, I have to ask you, with what he said about Chaz Lanier this past weekend, and hey, that's what he's been paid for, with his lack of shooting the ball when he wants him to. Do you think we'll see more of that and just understand that, hey, in an NIL era, like, we almost got to speak to these guys like they're pros? And Coach Barnes did it, and I don't think it was demeaning. I just think, hey, you're asked to do a job now, and it is that, because you get a W-2 at the end of the year.
I agree. I think all that more. So I think it more in how we moderate a message board on how, people can talk about players. I don't think you take personal shots, but if you want to say, man, is he worth the money we're paying him? I don't think that's a bad thing anymore. And that's more for me over the last few months. I would tell you back, early in the football season, I struggled with that. Yeah. Because it's just we've always been trained to not let them bash kids, and I don't think that's bashing kids, because there's a difference between taking a personal shot and just saying, man, we put a lot of money, Tennessee put a lot of money into that guy and he's not producing. And so, I don't know if more coaches will do it. Maybe a few. I think very few of them have the cachet that Rick Barnes has to just say whatever, whenever. Rick Barnes is kind of like my grandma, or when my father-in-law, who's now 81. It's funny how more just kind of like direct he is at his older age than he was 10 years ago.
Yep.
And so, like, you get to a point where you just don't care, right? And I think Coach Barnes is kind of there, with, and has been there for the last several years. He just says what's on his mind. And, I think there's something to be, there's a uniqueness and a truth to a lot of the stuff he says. And so, it caught a lot of people's attention just because, like a few years ago, that would have been blasphemy. And I'm sure some people in Indianapolis cringed, but these are the same people in Indianapolis that, let this thing get off the rails because they didn't think it won't be that bad.
Austin, they've got Georgia coming up here on Wednesday. And we've talked to you all the time about just the grueling SEC schedule, and you always got to try to stay healthy. What's the status right now of the health with this team as they just started pretty much SEC
they've got a few nicks and bruises.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kate Phillips has got a shoulder. You got the finger deal for, Jemai Mashak. They're kind of working through some nicks and bruises, but, and the big thing with Mashak is, you got to, when you're out there, you don't want to be like somebody that they just back off of, and then really you're playing 4-on-5.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
he's got to figure some stuff out offensively to be able to help this team. This is going to be a tough game. Georgia's sneaky good. They're now ranked for the first time in 14 years. 14 years.
That's wild.
That's a long time.
They had
Think
Anthony
about it.
Edwards on that team.
Yeah.
Ramon, you were in your second year with the Steelers.
That's what I'm saying. No, straight
You had
up.
no gray hair.
I had no gray hairs, man.
I actually had hair. All these things took place. Caleb was in college.
That's what I'm saying.
Thanks, Austin.
Okay.
Will Bowling was in middle school.
Yeah.
I think it was just in third grade now. I'm kidding. 14 years ago. But you're right, though. That's saying a lot.
wild.
The SEC is grueling right now,
Yep.
man. Speaking of that, on the other side of it, baseball is soon, right around the corner, too, man. Reigning national champions, man. Tony V, how do you see this season going with these guys? They got a lot of top 75 players on this team. Austin, do you see an opportunity for a repeat for Tony Vitello and the Vols baseball team?
So much has to go on,
It
to
does.
get to Omaha, and then the draw in Omaha. And so I don't know is the best question.
Yeah.
I do think they've got a ton of talent.
Yes.
I think they'll hit the ball like they've always hit the ball because that's what Tony's known for. What does the pitching look like? How quickly do they get some of these guys back? Early in the year they're coming off injuries, and I think the best question is, they very well could. I think, I think getting to Omaha would be a tremendous accomplishment after last year, and just to get yourself in, and then to me you're playing with house money. Like, just get yourself to Omaha, and then you're playing with house money. So, be interested to see kind of how this team meshes. How quickly do they mesh? There's a lot of new faces on this team, and in years past, Coach Vitale has been able to get pretty good production from the new guys pretty quick. So we'll see how they produce. And Hunter Ensley's the unquestioned leader on this team, and it'll be up to him to kind of lead this group and show them the ropes of playing in Knoxville and playing in the SEC for some of them.
Absolutely.
He is Austin Price of VolQuest. Appreciate you coming on, Austin. Great catching up with you, and as always, great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Oh.
All right, we're going to wrap up hour 3 here, and some interesting words from Miami head coach Mario Cristobal. He speaks on Carson Beck as Carson Beck is on his way there. And what about Cam Ward? Speaking a little bit too late in terms of what happened with him in that bowl game and pulling himself out in the first half. We'll get to that coming up next here on RK Dub 104.5 The Zone.